All right, folks, welcome to the Monday stream of TON. I hope you've had a good weekend. There were a few exciting things, fun things that have happened on the weekend. India female cricket team won the Cricket World Cup, so big congrats to them. There was one other thing that came out. Deepinder Goyal's book came out. I got a copy on Blinkit, and I mean it's fascinating. Like just I'm one third into the book, and you can see some of his the childhood memories and stuff, and what truly played a part on shaping him into this person that he's become today. We've read all the headlines, we've read all the numbers, but a book like this truly tells you what a human being is like, right? And that I think is a fascinating one. And one exciting story, I've one third into the book. So one story that stood out was that Priyank Swaroop was roommates or was he started a venture with Deepinder as well, and Deepinder was busy chasing his then wife or then to be wife Kanchan Joshi. And the first venture where they were trying to digitize SMEs and launch websites for them didn't take off. So he didn't partake in the second one, which would now be known as Zomato. So fascinating. I want to complete this book across this week as well, but do pick up a copy. I think it's a fascinating story. We've all seen the share prices, headlines, all of that stuff, but I think it's always good to just step back and learn the more human side of things as well. Today, we're going to talk about AI, travel, and crypto with our guests as well. So let's welcome our first guest from XAI, Gaurav Jain. Gaurav, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up? Nice to meet you, and thanks for inviting.
No, thank you so much. I saw that you were doing an AI meetup in Delhi. So I thought you will be in the same time zone, of course, traveling back from your role in SF. So I thought it'd be good for us to chat together and catch up on the show because we've spoken about headlines, numbers, big deals, and NVIDIA and OpenAI, everything that's happening in the world of AI. So I thought, why not hear from a practitioner himself? What do you do at XAI?
Yeah, so I joined XAI in June 25, so about a few months ago, and I'm in the inference team, mostly dealing with, when the models are served for real-time use case for end users. So a lot of the optimizations have to go in to make it, if, to make it efficient for users to have a seamless experience. So yeah, and most of it, what I do right now is more like you would have seen Grok Imagine, a lot of the image generation and video generation use cases, which are being released in mobile phone in the Grok app, X app, and as well as Grok.com. So that's where I'm working on the inference side of things. I'm happy to dive more deeper into inference as well if you want, but like yeah, I'll let you be.
What does it mean for our listeners?
Yeah, so in general, like, we train all these large models. You would have heard about a lot of these, like, a lot of AI compute be and infrastructure spend on training these models, right? But once you have you train these models once, right? But then there are users all across the world who want to use these models. So how do you use them? You essentially deploy them. You load the models up into these GPUs and all kinds of TPUs and different machine learning chips, and then you create these front ends for the user. Front end like chat app is one of the use cases. Now all of your requests goes back to these systems, and then these you give your user input to the model, and it goes through the entire model and gives you an output, right? So that essentially is model doing one pass to generate one output token, right? And we can go into tokens as well, because right now token economics is a very big thing which is talked about. But yeah, or at a very high level, that is what inference is. Now you have users across the world querying the model at the same time, so you can batch a lot of them at the same, batch them together, make it more efficient. A lot of the optimizations happen. It's essentially planetary scale computing. So if you don't make it efficient, you're just burning a lot of power as well as a lot of money. Yeah.
Gaurav, let's see if you can actually talk about this. But Grok, relative to its peers, seems like that student in class who always does well in exams, but is basically a backbencher. It's a fun model. It's got personality in how it gives out responses. Does that have anything to do with how it was trained in the first place, or what training data you may have used?
So I joined XAI in June, right? So like a
Ah,
few months ago. So
yeah.
so that's one thing. But in general, like I would say that has been the notion. Essentially, even when I was outside, when I was working at D Matrix before this, it used to be that, yeah, Grok probably what, like, people would talk about chat gpt way more often, right? And I think no other model was as frequently talked about, if you really think about it, right?
Yeah.
But now Grok is in the conversation. Grok is in the conversation not only on XApp. Grok is in the conversation when you look at imagine video generation model. We have people who are working on it day in day out. And
Yeah.
as for, like, when it comes to the training data and everything, I would say, like, at a very high level, each and every organization is using the same training data,
Hmm.
right? I don't think there is really as much novelty in the training data or there was as much novelty in the training data to begin with, right?
Yeah.
But now you can think about the advantages with Grok comes with. You have this X app where you are continuously interacting with Grok, right? And then you have different arenas where you have deployed Grok. Imagine is one of the other use cases. And now we have Grok as an API service which is also released, and people are trying to use Grok API along with X, and trying to get, your primary use cases of just Twitter sentiment analysis has become much more intelligent now, right? So yes, it I think one thing to really think about it is Grok really started in 23, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at OpenAI or even Google's DeepMind acquisition, they are more than a decade old now, right? Almost 9 to 10 years now. So the rate and the velocity with which the team has got together to build Grok, and not only one component, has built these various components, and
Yeah.
I think it's insane. At sometimes I really feel like it's a place where it just keeps on moving. And the best part about this is, like, everyone is moving in one direction, which we believe is, like, to not just solve the language use case, because language use case as
Yeah.
a chat, yeah, people are interacting with, but there are much more complex things which you really need to deal with. You would see
Yeah.
that people are trying to attempt olympiads. People are trying to attempt to solve drug use case, like, generating new drugs to cure different diseases which haven't been cured. Video games, physical world models. So yeah.
Can you give us a sense of Grok dev tools?
That's a really good question. I mean, I do try to follow what's happening in there, but
Yeah.
I think as far as I know, there is an API which is there,
Yeah.
which allow because Grok, I think, is an absolute best when you think about it from using from multi-tool use cases, right? Which is what like everyone wants to do now. When you think about things beyond chat, you have to think about how do you integrate these different parts of a user of different components and give an end-to-end seamless user experience, right? So on that end, I know Grok has the ability to search, has the ability for to like to use and query your GitHub repos. Similarly, look at different docs and different integrations, like with what many of the other sort of model companies, foundation model companies have started coming together with. But honestly, like I can, and I'm more than happy to also share the link after that if you to see how extensive the suite is now. It's changing every day, like really, like
Yeah.
people are working on it day in day out. So.
And you mentioned, I mean, given your technical vantage point, if everyone has access to the same data, I know you merged with X, and the same company is now known as, I mean, the XAI or the X Corp. Uh, I mean, of course, you get an advantage because of real-time data which is being generated on the Twitter feed or the X feed. But where is the highest lever that is coming out now? Like, how do you optimize this to become even better than other models?
Yeah, so think about it from this perspective, right? Like we have Tesla and SpaceX as well, right? Like they are all part of, at the end of the day, so like they're
Wow.
very tightly integrated, right? So you have Grok, which has been deployed into Tesla cars. People are using it day in, day out. And again, like you have this voice API, which is integrated into the Tesla system, and then you can chat with it while your car is driving, taking you from point A to point B. And so that is something which is coming in, right? And then at the same time you have different use cases where Grok is being used for customer support at Tesla. It is being used in different places inside SpaceX. So a lot of those things are already where Grok is deployed, and which are unique. Like you cannot think about any other. Like probably Google has that advantage because Google can go and talk about like deploy their models in Waymo and something like that, which I don't think is the case today. But the fleet which Tesla has, I don't think any other car company or even the model company has. So that's one thing. And the other thing is like really thinking about the principles, right? Like I'm sure you would have heard Elon also talk about this a lot, is that like world models and like for these models to automatically, or in the sense like be able to generate these video games all to all, give a user an experience, really like really make you feel like you're living in a simulation. And so from that perspective we get I think we are positioned in a very good place, I would say. Really like, but yeah, a lot of those details are still are something which I don't know if I can speak about or not, and I probably might also be something which I don't really know. Right, so yeah.
Gaurav,
Fair
when
enough.
was Grok 4 launched? And that's the current generation, right?
Yes, July.
July. Okay, so
Yeah.
just a month after you came. And I've
Yes.
read, like, I've read this in the public domain, but I think Grok 4 was trained at the Memphis facility, like the Colossus, the human.
Yes. In-house. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you
Yeah.
do you know anything about Colossus? Have you been to Memphis, that facility? Can you share
No.
something interesting? Okay.
Waiting for the trip, but I would really say that like if you there are a few folks on Twitter who I myself follow because of like where they work at the facility and they keep on giving these sort of regular updates even on Twitter. So they're really fun people to follow, and you really get sort of a real time update about like how the facility is coming up and how these large 100K 200K clusters are coming up sort of in a few months time and very rapidly.
And on Twitter and LinkedIn, you've spoken about, I mean, sorry, I'm calling it Twitter, old habits die hard. You said XAI is rethinking assistant intelligence rather than just generative chatbots, or AI works both ways. Break it down for us.
Who said this? uh,
Sorry,
I
maybe I'm picking up the wrong commentary. All right. Anyways, so skip that. But so let's bring the conversation back home. So you held that AI happy hour in Delhi. What is your landscape overview of what's happening in the world of India?
Yeah, unfortunately, that did not happen because like which was very strange for me. So I reached out to a bunch of cafes. I thought it would be pretty easy to call a cafe and say that I need a space for about 20-25 folks to meet on a Saturday evening, and they were like, no, we don't take reservations on Saturday evening. So instead, like what I started doing was set up one-on-one chats, and I've met a bunch of people already. Yeah, I'm pretty bummed about it that I couldn't get to meet more people at the same time. So lesson learned that do it in advance and not a couple of days before when I actually want to meet. But yeah, in general, I think I do have some opinions about the Indian landscape as well, and I've been meeting founders and also trying to just read more about what's happening over here. I think it's India is in an interesting position right now. If you think about it from the perspective of that, hey, where are we in terms of, like, because questions very often come up, where are we in terms of frontier models, right? What are we doing? Are we training our models? If you're not, then what's happening, right? So I think it's a pretty unique position, like India overall, right? Because I don't think compute compute is one of the biggest challenges, and I don't think India is really good when you or in the sense like has any advantage when it comes about compute, right? I think we are pretty lacking if you look at China or US. And in fact, obviously we it's ramping up, but I think the ramp up is honestly like too slow from in my
Catch
opinion,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You talk to founders, and I have talked to a bunch of them. A lot of them have this opinion that, hey, there is this fund which is organized by the Indian government about that we need to source more GPUs. But I think when you compare yourself with other countries like the US and China, they're not waiting on the government to give them funds, right? They are like they have this investor money, and they have their own like research, like in the sense revenue which they are putting into AI capex. Look at Google, Facebook. And I really think, like, from an Indian landscape perspective, this it has to be accelerated. When you look at, let's say, I think when I entered the conversation, you were talking about Zomato, right? Zomato, for that matter, is probably one of the first companies, like first startups of this new age, that has gone on to IPO, right? How many, like, I think that's one of the companies which I saw growing up, right? I don't remember last company which has sort of taken, like, there are very few companies in that space today. So these are the companies I think which should lead the charge. Like, I think Ola tried doing that, but I think they went on a very different trajectory than they should have. But yeah, these companies should be leading in charge about, like, hey, we will source these GPUs for you, you train these models on them. That's one part. But yeah, as for like the other part is also the consumer landscape, and consumer landscape, which I certainly think many companies have now realized that India is a very hot landscape. It's like the mobile app era of 2010s, when Ola had just come in, and I think a couple of other mobile apps had just come. MobiKwik, Freecharge had come in, and people immediately got onto them. I think that we still haven't hit that inflection point where there is an AI app from India which I really want to use, and I'll be very bummed if I'm not able to use that, right? So we are still very early in that, but India really has certain unique niche use cases where it can crack the market, and I think which sort of will make it another, like, $1 billion company for that matter.
Dhruv, anything to close us out with?
Gaurav, what's it like to work at XAI?
Oh, pretty fun. I mean, I think I'm learning every hour or every minute for that matter. Really interesting conversations, really interesting peers, and extremely talented people. I think one of the most talented set of people I've ever met in my life. So and also learning to learn as well as deliver at the same speed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome. More power to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and educating us. Thank you,
And
Gaurav.
thanks
Have
a
a
lot for
great rest
everybody.
of the trip, Gaurav. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, listeners, now we'll change gears up a little bit. Let's talk about our favorite thing, I think, for most people, travel. Let's welcome Ankit, who's the co-founder of On Arrival, to tell us about what's happening in the world of travel. Ankit, welcome.
Hey, hi, what's up? Hi, Dhruv. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much
I
for
hope
dialing in.
I hope I'm very clear in front of you.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
tell our listeners, what does On Arrival do?
so, in very simple words, On Arrival is basically trying to build an AWS for travel. Uh, I come from travel background. I've worked almost 12 years now, adding 3 years, almost 15 years in travel. One of my observation was to think about it today, one of the most costliest infrastructure in the world is AI, but anyone with a credit card can access it from a as a developer. But equally costlier is travel, but it will be no developer can access it outright. It is so difficult to get APIs for flights, for APIs for hotels, trying to understand what is happening with your flight information, whether it is on time. So many things are complicated workflows because travel was one of the first verticals which got digitized in 1963. So it is carrying the baggage of 40, 50 years, 60 years in terms of how the technology is. And no one has been willing to solve that baggage. And I think with the advent of AI, it is that has made it very, very clear that whatever has happened in the last 50, 60 years in terms of selling travel online will not function for the next I would say, decade or so, because AI needs access to the inventory in such a short amount of time. It needs more attributes to the inventory than just pricing. It needs far more richer information that it can marry with your profile, that maybe Utsav likes to only travel on business class, or Dhruv, when traveling with extended family, only travels on premium economy. Small nuances that it can pick up and now fine-tune your results. So all of this, for a longest of time, was left for user to figure out in the UI. But now there is someone in between who's willing to take that decision for you. But it needs access to that information at that speed, so it can spend that short amount of time trying to figure it out. So that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a new infrastructure so that anyone new who's trying to sell travel, or anyone who's already selling travel, can actually build a B2C experience on top of it. Like AWS is my favorite example, but also something like Stripe for travel, to make it easy for developers to integrate travel.
So embedded travel, basically.
In a way, embedded travel, yeah. Anyone can embed it in any format, anywhere.
And I mean, you and I are part of this WhatsApp group, fintech.org.
Yes.
And I remember you posting a comment there about how banks might be bigger than OTAs at some point in terms of selling travel.
Yeah, because this is something that already happened in US. The fastest growing OTAs are actually JP Chase, Capital One, banks who have invested significantly in creating out I would say creating a travel experience. Because look at your own personal consumption behavior. You basically use a credit card to buy travel somewhere because you want to optimize for points, which can be used to transfer in some loyalty program, right? So in India, largely 50 to 60% of online travel is booked through credit cards. They are the biggest driver of credit cards. Travel is the biggest category of co-branded credit cards which sells in the country. HDFC Smart Buy, which is the one of which everyone uses for point redemption, that itself does almost $800 million of travel transactions a year. So if it was an OTA, it would have been the fifth, sixth OTA in the country. So, but the consumer largely is sitting with the bank. The credit card is the biggest driver. And we thought that if the banking travel experience is as good as an OTA, there is no reason for someone to go to an OTA, because the credit card, you're getting underwritten by the bank, you're getting a better offer from the bank. Now the portal on the bank is also as good as an OTA. So why not make them the powerhouse for selling travel? Yeah.
This is so interesting, because the adage is every company is a fintech company. What Ankit is really saying is every financial services company is in the end a travel company. But Ankit, could you, I mean, you've obviously shared a lot in your sort of opening, remarks or comments, but can you still give us the landscape of travel? Who are the actors? But more importantly, who are the actors you work with? Who are these sellers? Who are the ancillaries? Help us sort of visualize.
So we primarily today work with any financial institution who wants to sell travel, who has a credit card in offering. It can be a co-branded credit card. It can be a bank itself selling the credit card, because they drive in India. OTA travel market, GMV wide, is 15 billion. But the spends on credit cards that happen in travel are larger than 15 billion. They're almost 22 billion. So they are the ones who are driving consumption. So we primarily today work with them. However, we work with also expense management companies who are embedded in companies to help you file your expenses, to launch corporate travel version of the products. Because once you do expense management, there is a saying in travel that it's like a triangle. You are doing expense management, then you're doing travel, and then you're doing a card. So then you're doing all three for a corporate. So that is another set of customers that we work with. And the third set of customers that we are working with are some of the OTAs in outside India markets who are not that good with their tech stack, but they want to basically, I would say, why would people choose to work on an AWS? Because it is a better infrastructure. So that's the option that we give to them. And in terms of supply, typically we act as a platform. We aggregate everything that a Make My Trip has done over the last 20 years. But the benefit today is, I think, we are able to do it much more faster, because today, by co-founder, every integration that we do happens through an agentic AI that is only built for doing travel integrations. It does nothing else. So we are able to do an integration maybe in a week or two, which historically used to take 3 months, 6 months, which has been trained in-house. And we are able to provide, today, whoever we work with, we provide them a guarantee that our pricing will at least be better or match Make My Trips of the world or Clear Trips of the world at this point in time.
And how do you source inventory for this to give a better price?
So in India, we try to work directly with as many suppliers as possible. So the thing is, everyone assumes that travel market is only what you see for the consumer on the top with the OTAs. But there's a huge B2B aggregator market in between that has been operating for the last decade plus. I think the biggest example is some of the companies that are listed in India. There are significant companies which are outside of India. So a big portion of travel has always been done through B2B plus. B2C example, every country, I would say that B2C travel is mostly oligopoly. Every country has only 3 or 4 players which are very, very strong. But B2B travel is the opposite of that. It is a huge spread. So we work with them to start off to meet the B2C expectation. And then we basically decide who do you directly work with and go deeper into that pricing and inventory mix and max.
And one interesting thing that you mentioned, agentic AI that helps
Yes.
create your product faster. Like,
Yeah.
give us, like, I mean, you've written a blog post about this also, I believe.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about this. Like, I mean,
So,
or 2, 3
yeah.
different flows on
There are-
how agentic AI or even AI can come into the world of travel and specifically in your company also.
There are 2 types to think about integration. One is we have created an integration where we, on paper, guarantee the customer that you will go live in 30 days. Otherwise, you have a penalty for us. Like I'm talking about, since we start the work on integration, there are some prerequisites that they have to do. And in 30 days, your product can be launched to all of your consumers, which is a crazy amount of guarantee to give.
SLA.
Whether I don't have an insight on what they will do, but I'm confident on my co-founder that he will do it. And as far as integrations go, right, the entire travel industry is all about integrations. You need to have better, deeper integration with flights or hotels or what is happening with your, I would say, reservations and so on and so forth. These integrations have, I would say, 15 years, 20 years of trading data today. I would say that they have been there in so many forums. Okay, how do I integrate this? There are so many blogs written about this. There are so many things which have gone so technical. So we are able to use that to basically train the first level of integration work that I would say 2 developers or 3 developers have done maybe in a month to be done in 3-4 days. And then there are people who would then overlook at that integration and then take it to maybe a 90-95% success in another probably 4 to 5 days. And then the last level of testing that happens, which is, I would say, pure, that you can't not have a person do it. So that's where the last 5-10% heavy lifting is done by a person, actually an engineer. But that whole entire cycle, when we started, we were doing it in 4 weeks. Then we brought it to 3. Today we are doing it 2. And now we are going to attempt something to be done in 7 days. So that's an internal benchmark to see whether that is possible or not. But if it happens, it will be like crazy in terms of the velocity it will provide to my team. Because we are a small team today. We are just 20-25 people as of now. So we have been leveraging, we are making sure that, like, I think one of the questions I ask even in non-tech roles every day is that how much of AI do you use? Which one of them you personally pay for? And if the answer is usually no, I think that then the person would not probably be very keen to use AI also as they grow.
Interesting. That's a solid hiring insight for the world that we're heading into.
Yeah.
Ankit, then if we take a step back from your role at, the work you're doing at On Arrival, as someone who's been in the travel industry, what do you think is the ideal travel experience as a traveler, as a business traveler, traveling for leisure? And
So
what's missing from that experience?
I think the biggest missing point is post-booking experience. You book your flights by searching anything and everything, whatever discount you can aggregate, whatever you can do. But then what happens after? Like, there is a huge gap between once you have bought a flight and you have a PNR to thinking about, okay, now I have to do a check-in. Now I have to figure out which seat to select. Now I have to understand whether this flight will have maybe even a power connection. Does it have an internet?
Yeah.
How much, like, is it, for example, if it is Air India, whether it is a retrofitted, like a lot of these things that come in, right?
Yeah.
So that entire experience is anxiety inducing, even today.
I know.
What is the probability of your flight will get cancelled? Is that historically have been cancelling for 50% of the time?
Yeah.
So many things. Then even today, there is I don't want to name the company, but it is a company that has recently got listed and it is in travel internationally.
Yeah.
They have a 300 people team sitting in Philippines, okay, whose only job is globally, when any hotel booking happens on their platform, they pick up the phone, call the front desk of the hotel and confirm whether the reservation has reached their system.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time the reservation would be stuck in some random
Mm.
integration somewhere, it will not reach the front desk. And when the customer walks in, he's like, I don't have your reservation.
Yeah.
So those things are
Wow.
what are the biggest pain points today in travel, and everyone is trying to figure out how do I solve. Like even simple things like, for example, you book an experience. For which includes the pickup from your hotel. Now,
Yeah.
where exactly do you stand in a hotel? Should I be in the lobby? Should I be at the curbside? Will they call me when they're at the reception? Do I get the number of the person? Do I call? There's so many of these small things.
So many
what,
moving parts. Yeah.
yeah. So what I like to say to people when I also start to, when some people ask me what exactly are you solving in travel, so
Yeah.
my go-to answer is key. Travel is an industry which is like it's like you can die with 1,000 cuts. There are thousands of small things you have to solve
Yeah.
to get that entire experience right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you cannot be just sitting on one thing and saying, I'm just solving this. I don't care about what happens with the rest of the customer.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Ankit,
I think
your
that's it.
business, I think, reminds me a lot of Madhu of M2P. Have you met him?
Yeah. I've not met him, but
Huh.
the fund that has invested in, who's a lead investor in seed, basically they were also the seed investors of M2P.
Because my first
yeah.
conversation with him, I'm an investor in his company as well. I mean, he just described how tough it was to digitize or sort of build around these APIs for these legacy systems of these
Yeah.
banks, right? And you
Yeah.
have pretty much done that as well. So give us a
Yeah.
look back into what that journey was. Like, I mean, these legacy systems of these various travel providers and operators and B2B systems, and convincing them to partner with you.
So I think
Can I add to that question?
Yeah, please.
So, the lore about Stripe, Ankit, which is that they basically turned what used to be the CFO's decision to a dev's decision by just making it so easy to integrate with APIs. Do you really see that happening in India when you go out and sell?
So, sorry, can you repeat it? I just lost you for a second there.
Yes. I was saying, the lore about Stripe, that they made it so easy to integrate Stripe APIs that the developers would actually, who at the end of the day had to do the work, would be like, yeah, they became the decision makers and they said, yes, we're only going to go ahead with Stripe. Do you see that happening in India?
Actually, so what happens with us is largely, so everyone thinks that I want to be to any customer, right? Largely in any part of in India, internationally, everyone believes that I want to build the experience. Sorry, are you able to hear me? Yeah.
A little bit. I think the internet is glitching.
Yeah, just a second. I think, sorry about that.
I know you posted about you talking at top 2% whisper flow, 125 words per minute. So I think the system is trying to catch up. I think the model is playing.
Yeah. No, sorry. So I'll come to that. So what happens is, so the text, so our 30-day guarantee in terms of integration, right? It involves a mix of, I would say, it's an SDK with some kind of flair where it basically behaves very natively, and every integration that we write from a host app to our app is basically slightly customized based on their tech stack. Okay. When I tell people that it is an embedded experience, the first thought that everyone has is this will be like a PWA opening in my app. I don't want this. Right? Everyone is like, even I'm assuming when any of the apps you open and then you realize this is a PWA, it is opening up a web view inside, you are like, I don't want to do this. When we actually demo the actual integration and show that people are not able to figure out when they actually went out of the app and came into the experience, and I can create this in your app, that's when we have that magic moment where the CTO says, I want to rather use their stack than spend this entire effort into putting up engineers, learning how to integrate, what are the nuances, what are the smaller things. So we have focused not on, I would say today, not just on a better API experience, because that is still doesn't take you to the final consumer product. I am saying I focused on the end consumer product itself. That this is you install or you put it into your app as an SDK or whatever, we're calling it micro frontend. We have actually applied for a patent for it in terms of how the integration works. I'm hopeful that we'll get it. But the idea being that that experience can actually replace the ability what you can do with an API also. So it is slightly forward in terms of what you can achieve. And looking at that, then I think the CTOs then say that, okay, I would rather do just this because I'm able to, whatever I can think of, I am able to recreate it in this. So why should I spend the effort of actually integrating the API. So they take that decision. Most of the business folks are largely driven from an experience point of view without the nuances of it. They understand that API experience means I control everything. But we have shown that I can do this and let you control everything. So that's where it basically helps us largely in terms of where the CTOs and the product people take the decision and tell the business post case, I don't want to spend time doing the actual integration, I would do this.
Ankit, as a final question before we let you go, so you've assembled these serious moats with your agentic AI, with new patents, and of course, I mean, digitizing these legacy systems as well. What is the scale of on arrival right now, and where do you see this in the next 5 years?
Today, I can tell you from an access point of view, today we have access to roughly 5 million credit card users through our customers. And so our goal largely is to get to maybe like a 10% penetration in the market from an access to credit card point of view, which with the kind of customers that we have, which are supposed to go live over the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we believe that we will hit that number. We will also very soon start hitting an annualized GMV of maybe in excess of 100 million. And the idea being that so the question right now is how do we reach? We are not trying to solve for how do I reach $1 billion today, because I have a part to that. What we're trying to figure out is what it takes to become from $1 billion to 10 billion, from a inventory point of view, from a customer point of view, and what other use cases like agentic. We are actually by the end of this month, hopefully, we will release a MCP which will take care of flight bookings end to end in India, and that should. And the idea being that itself is a B2B product. So anyone can integrate and create that experience. So we are trying to do something in credit card travel. We're trying to do something in corporate travel. We're trying to do using the same platform. We're trying to, I would say, solve for the agentic or the MCP part of the travel. And the idea being to double down on all 3 use cases, because the fundamental building block of all these use cases is the platform that we have. And these are all expressions on top of it. Tomorrow, if you tell me that I want to launch a influencer-led travel where every influencer gets a URL which is an OTA of their own, I can do that. But should I prioritize it? Probably not right now. But the idea being that a platform has a lot of ability to do a lot more things. And our customers, the kind of customers that come on board, will actually guide what use cases to build on top.
Awesome, Ankit. Thank you so much for coming on to educate us. Thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Travel looks exciting.
Great having you.
All right, listeners, let's welcome our next guest. We're going to switch gears up yet again. Nakul, who's going to educate us about the world of what's happening in the world of crypto. Nakul, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how are you?
Congrats. You've recently announced a 20 million round as well, Pantera and Sequoia, and some really good names. What does it mean for the company and what does the company do?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
by the way, assume that we're all 10-year-olds on the show. So explain everything in the world of crypto, which can get, of course, very technical and you can get really passionate into the weeds of the whole thing. 10-year-olds on the show,
absolutely.
Including the hosts.
Think of Multiply as like a smart interest engine, right, for crypto and real world assets. So we help money actually earn instead of just sitting there. So, today, I think that the thesis that we went about is that there are billions in Bitcoin, gold, even, as people are tokenizing things like Tesla stock, they're just parked, right? And the goal is we make them actually work for you and sweat those assets, right, safely. And if you think about like fintech, right, a lot of people got attracted. I worked in in the space for about 10 years, with PayPal, Venmo, Coinbase. And I think yield was at the center of it, right? Why people came to DeFi in the first place or went away from their banks like JP Morgan Chase because fintech started providing them a good yield, right? And essentially that's what the wedge is with DeFi as well, where essentially what we're doing is we are kind of taking these assets that are coming on chain in a big way. It started with stables and Bitcoin. Now gold is coming on chain, tokenized assets are coming on chain. We're putting some wrappers around it and providing that yield, which is one of the main reasons why people should come on chain instead of just, kind of accessing those assets traditionally.
And what does DeFi mean for our listeners?
Yeah, so DeFi is nothing but decentralized finance, right? What it really means is that Traditionally, we have had guardians who have taken care of our financial world, whether it's banks, custodians. Now, I think money has gone permissionless. And what I say permissionless is you can store your own money in your own wallets, right? And there's no government, there is no custodian, there's no bank that can take it away from you, right? And that essentially is at the core of DeFi. So it creates a lot of permissionless markets with smart contracts. Essentially, what smart contracts are, you can just kind of deploy something and trust in the code, right? Instead of trust me, bro, with the financial institutions, you can say, hey, let the code do its magic, and that creates a lot of markets on top of money movement. So lending, borrowing, what kind of Goldman Sachs did for the TradFi world, a lot of players in the crypto world are doing for DeFi and creating those kind of on-chain markets because now money is truly, permissionless.
Nakul, your customers, are they mostly individuals? Are they mostly institutions?
So we're focused mostly on institutions, right? Because those are the ones who kind of understand crypto, can move in size. So trying to target the family offices, the high frequency traders, a little bit more crypto native folks first before we go more wider.
And when they come to you to maximize yield, is it typically across a single asset, a bunch of assets, or an entire portfolio?
So essentially, they start small, right? They dip their feet with stables, like everyone's got stable coins or USDC kind of lying around. So they start with that. But our real pitch here is actually getting them more and more involved in other tokenized assets, right? So one of the largest gold kind of reserve holders, out of India, like they actually they're sitting on a ton of gold and that's generating them no yield. So as Paxos, brought kind of tokenized gold on chain, we're helping them with our partners, tokenize that gold, bring it on chain, and use that as collateral for actually unlocking yield on it. Right. What that means is that now these idle assets in the real world with these institutional partners, we can unlock them in this crypto world.
And stable coins have been talk of the town, right? A lot of people are investing in it. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of countries are looking into it. But I mean, they've been existing for a while. What's the landscape like? What's the history like of the world of stable coins?
Yeah, so stablecoin is nothing but a digital dollar, right? It's the easiest way for someone to understand and onboard. I mean, with UPI or a card, your money hops through banks and fees, right? With stablecoin, it goes directly. So there's no middleman, there's no delays. So you can send like $1,000 from India to Singapore in like 5 or 10 seconds and maybe even earn interest while it's traveling, right? So I think the way I think about stablecoin is nothing but UPI, but for the planet. When I was in PayPal and other places, everyone was busy building walled gardens, right? They were trying to move money from Venmo to Venmo, and they spent, I think, about 4 years trying to create rails that can move money from Venmo to PayPal, their own system, right? So this is what traditional fintech has been about, right? Because it makes sense because the earlier TradFi system was even more broken with Zelle. Now, stables has truly liberated us, right? What this means is that you can move money around, whether it starts with retail, sending it to your family and friends without going through Western Union at like 6% interest, whether it is B2B for exporters, right, who are today not able to do that trade because it takes 2 months for kind of the Swift or something else to get approved or gets caught up in compliances. And then at a larger scale, as a hedge against inflation, if you're in Argentina, one of these countries, by the time you're trying to buy bread, you have to take a truckload of money. So I think all of these things, I think over time, stable coins is maybe a really elegant like design and answer for that.
Has the Genius Act really propelled them, legitimized them?
Not really. I think Genius Act has put maybe more of a regulatory framework that don't mess around by issuing stables that essentially can be rug pull, right? So more than anything else, it's created this kind of more regulatory clarity around who the issuers will be, right? Who can actually be participating in the economy because as we see, has been a Cambrian implosion of stablecoin, right? Everyone and their mother wants a stablecoin. Stripe, Coinbase, everyone kind of launched their own stable coin. And there'll be many companies who continue to do so. Now, the Genius Act introduces a way they can do that without many of these rug pulling, people.
So more protection. But there was an A16Z report that came out which said crypto went mainstream in 2025. When does that moment happen in India? Like, I mean, do we move up the chain in terms of becoming actual users and consumers of this, or will all of our talent just move away because of regulations in India?
Yeah, I think India's in a tricky spot, right? Because the reality is like it doesn't make sense for them to open up crypto just because there will be a flight of money outside, and India's historically loved to kind of protect money movement, right? With all the FEMA and the RBI laws, which makes sense. Now, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? With India, I think they have to open up crypto in a very kind of slow and gradual way and understand crypto. I'm not saying like do CBDCs or something like that because the government is not equipped to do that. Payments as a use case is already solved in India, right? So clearly, like crypto is not used for payments. But if you look at the broader participation, like for example, even mainstream use cases like poly markets, right? Today, a lot of people are betting on the elections and things globally through poly markets, and no one even knows that it's crypto is powering the rails, right? If you do a survey, 80% people don't know there's crypto behind poly market. So I think a lot of these things, like globally, whether it's gambling, whether it's prediction markets, I think there are a lot of things that India can unlock. But at the same time, I think India has to take it more gradually because of the ability for people to actually, misuse that. So I think India will adopt it, but in a very cautious, like kind of gradual way. Yeah.
In a
Nakul, I'm
lot.
wondering.
Sorry.
What's up? Go ahead.
No, please
I
go.
was wondering if now that Nakul is here, if we could do maybe a 2 or 3 minute capsule on what it means to tokenize a real world asset. We
Yeah.
hear this all the time, but in the simplest terms possible, Nakul, help all of us understand.
Like, assume that Dhruv has 1 kg of gold at home. How does he tokenize that and earn a yield on that?
Let me look for it. It's right here.
So maybe gold is a harder example because it'll
Or
have to be
private
more
stock.
technical.
Let's pick private stock. Yeah.
Let's talk about the easiest thing, right? Let's talk about T-bills. I
Yeah.
mean, the US Treasury T-bills are the gateway to tokenization right now because they're like trillions of tokenized, like, and what are T-bills? These are Treasury bills of 4% like yield typically that the US holds. Now, how the space started getting disrupted initially is because as a user outside of the US, like even in the US, by the way, I tried to onboard to treasury bills to, my JP Morgan provides me a 0.1% yield. So I do need that 4% yield for my dollar. Now, how do I access that is the main question, right? What tokenization is all about. If I were to access that as a US consumer, I would have to onboard to an E-Trade account. And like it took me like a week or two to figure out where the exact button is and how to buy these tables. And it was not just complicated, but also it took a few weeks, even as a savvy user. Now, if you're outside the US, those tables are really hard to access, right? In terms of compliance, onboarding, in terms of everything, right? Now, what does tokenization do? So the companies like Ondo, which is now a $10 billion company, the companies, many such tokenization companies. And what did they do? They essentially created a structure like an SPV or, more regulated structure that can take in so-called investors, right? And what they did was they wrapped the tokenized, they wrapped the T-bills by saying, I will create the infrastructure where someone can come in and buy even $100 of a T-bill. I will aggregate all that demand and then go and create my own institutional account where I can buy $1 million worth of treasury bills and distribute that through tokens to my holders, right? So something as simple as that, where I am someone sitting outside the US, I can go on this website, like just swap out my stables for $100 in treasury bills. And underneath it is this company which is aggregating, tokenizing. And what I mean by tokenizing, it's doing nothing but very traditional work, right? Just create an account, aggregating that demand and issuing tokens on chain, right? Which means there's a one-to-one dollar pegged kind of, very similar to stables, but essentially they created the infrastructure behind it, right? And herein lies the trust that, these acts and regulations will come in and enforce so that, there's no rug pull. But at the core of it, tokenization is nothing but simplification of a legal structure and B, allowing people to get one-to-one backed assets so they can hold it in their wallet and continue to earn interest on it, right? And now you can take that analogy and blow it up for gold and any other asset where there's a custodian at the end of the day, like doing that structure while issuing these tokens that represent that physical asset or financial asset.
In the world of crypto, I think moves very fast, right? I mean, NFTs were all the rage during the pandemic where everyone was buying boards, apes, monkeys,
Monkey
and like
pictures.
all pictures, all JPEG stored somewhere else and this thing. And the hype failed to live up, right? And what do you think might be the next, or is the current like sort of pockets of excitement that's happening in the world of crypto, which might actually sustain as a trend?
Yeah,
Right.
crypto is like any other industry, right? We'll see, like, if you also saw the 𝐴16Z report, like we're going through a 10-year cycle where, many of these use cases like NFTs, it turns out that there's something really good and we borrow the tech, right? And the actual use case was just like, just speculative in nature. But I see like the thing that's sweeping the world today is actually payments and programmability, right?
Mm.
So what people are doing is they're moving money uh, very easily from point A to point B, right? And institutions are doing that in a very big way, especially around B2B, like cross-border payments. I think that has come about to be really easy because the big boys, right, the Stripes of the world and Adyan's and everyone's gotten in. So they've realized that this is a better way to move money. So I think consumers will see that very like soon, whether it's an exporter, whether it's, you doing cross-border remittance. I think that's the simplest way to understand kind of, what's happening. The other use cases I would say are like I just spoke about poly markets and prediction markets, right? I think betting, like essentially think about like there used to be a ton of these like local players, regulated local TAMs. With crypto, everything becomes a global TAM, right? Like if you can imagine like a billion people, which is maybe the penetration in the next couple of years will hold crypto, then any financial application, any type of gambling, any type of prediction markets, they can just link their wallet and do that activity, right? Whether it's poker, whether, it's anything. So I think that'll be the second big use case where you can unlock speculation, you can unlock yield from those kind of financial assets that are held by anyone globally. And on top of that, now you can build like some amazing consumer applications. And obviously, trading will always be a part of it, right? I think another really cool innovation that crypto did was perp dexes. It's called perpetual dexes. You don't have to own an asset, but you can trade on it in terms of just longing and shorting it. So I think that's opened up really massive markets where today the perp dex market is 10 to 20x of spot markets, right? If we trade like trillion, like hundreds of billions in spot, the perp dex market is even bigger, right? And I think that's where a lot of, innovation lies in crypto and creating like better trading engines and in these consumer facing applications.
Awesome, Nakul. Thank you so much for educating us, and all the best to you and the team. Really appreciate
Thank you
it.
guys. Have a great day.
Fun chatting with you, Nakul.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you've had a nice Monday. We'll see you on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Thank you. Bye-bye.